From Rixie, this is the Daily Rec. I'm Steve Skeels, host of Rixie's new video game news podcast, Debuff. My video game recommendation for today is Darkest Dungeon, an indie game by Red Hook Studios. I first heard about this game about 4 years ago when I was watching a video for another indie game and the developers mentioned something about being at a convention with a booth next to the Darkest Dungeon guys. I watched probably about an hour of gameplay, then I went and bought it on Steam, and I put 50 hours into it over the next few weeks. Since then, I've bought it on every platform I can. At its core, Darkest Dungeon is a turn-based RPG with some roguelite mechanics like permadeath and loads of RNG. The game always gives you all the information you need though, with things like your chance to hit and potential damage shown at all times. So in most cases, bad RNG can be mitigated. There isn't a ton of story in the game, but basically your ancestor unearthed some Lovecraftian horror at your family's estate and you gotta return home to deal with it. Personally, I think the gameplay loop for this game is really addicting and it has some unique features. But I think the reason I really love Darkest Dungeon so much is it just oozes style. The art direction, the music, and the fantastic narration done by Wayne June, it's just all so good. It's pretty easy to see that every part of the game was implemented with a strong purpose. At GDC, the two co-founders of Red Hook gave a talk and mentioned how they drafted up these design points when they were beginning development, and they stuck to them for every decision they made about the game. And when you play it, I think that consistent vision really shines through, not just with the game design, but the design of the gameplay and everything you do in the game, really. They wanted the players to feel like they were connected to their heroes and to feel the impact that the dungeons would have on the people that are going through them. Fighting monsters and seeing these Lovecraftian horrors should terrify you, so that's what happens to the heroes. They do this in a couple of ways. Obviously, the permadeath I mentioned has an impact since they can die, but there's two other features that you get to deal with. In addition to managing your health, there's a stress mechanic that's kind of like a second health bar on a basic level, but heroes get stressed out from enemy attacks or from some of the objects you find in the dungeons, these interactable curios they call them. But too much stress can cause the heroes to go through a check where basically they get a buff or a debuff, which then can also have an effect on the other party members. So say one of your heroes gets abusive, he'll start talking shit to the rest of the team, giving them stress. Good things can happen too. They might come out and start inspiring the team to do better and stuff like that. Too much stress though can cause your characters to have a heart attack, so quickly you will deal with trying to mitigate stress as much as possible. But the second mechanic that I want to mention is the quirk system. Your heroes pick up quirks throughout their adventures, and these are more like semi-permanent buffs and debuffs. You can lock them in or get rid of them when you get back to town. It's kind of a simple system, and they don't always correlate to things that happen to the heroes, but it's still pretty cool. You might get things like bonus to your accuracy or damage. Your crusader might also decide that he's really interested in the dead, and he'll immediately start interacting with piles of bones you pass through in the dungeon, and that can trigger, more stress to him, or maybe you'll get another quirk from that. And unless you get rid of it, that's something you can't control. These all interact with the fun combat system. There's 17 unique classes, and you get to build a party of 4, or you get multiple parties you can put together, but put together your characters, put them in different positions that kind of decide what abilities they'd be able to use, and then you go through the dungeon and fight monsters. There isn't a single game that it reminds me of, but it feels like Slay the Spire without the cards, mixed with some of the strategizing and management of something like Into the Breach, and I've heard the RNG of XCOM is pretty similar. I would definitely recommend this game to anyone that likes RPGs but doesn't mind things like permadeath, especially if you like party management and RNG in your games. It can be really hard, but I think it's always manageable, and on the standard and easy difficulties, it's impossible to get a game over. So that's always good. The official release of this game was back in January 2016. If you want to check it out, It's on all consoles and PC, but there will be a link to the Steam page in the show notes. This has been your Daily Rec. See you on Tuesday.